beginning any film, pre-production in any film, is really just, you know, sorting each other out and finding out, making sure that stylistically we're on the same wavelength.
Peter and Michael were very keen for it not to be a gothic vampire movie, that it was based on a reality that the audience would recognize. So the vampire world as it exists in this film is very much like the world we live in now.
This is the side of the near miss and the car crash with Ed and Lucy's car. This area here, just on the corner, there'll be a transformer box, but quite a large one. Camera will be starting tilted down to road level. Chris will create a little bit of traffic. At this stage we'll probably use a double, by the way, to cross the road. So it's the three-hander which would play around the base of the steps here with the tree in the background.
We'll have scattered burning bodies and stuff in here.
So yeah, that would just slide through here, and then you just bounce something off the floor over there as if it was being lit by this source here.
Okay.
And that'd be cool too on the heads if there's a little bit more illumination.
Yeah,
moving.
and then it's dark and then light.
Yeah, that's cool. We spent quite a bit of time looking for a cinematographer. While we did have a decent budget, it wasn't going to be huge, and we wanted somebody who could give us kind of a big picture look without all the toys. Ben was somebody who started out in commercials. He went through the same commercial production company Michael and I went through, and he had a similar training.
We discussed the type of movie they wanted to make, and really we just spent some time together. And I think that's a big part of the process, is getting to know the other person and know their particular nuance on the subtleties of what they want. Reveal, and then you can choose to step him into that, and doors close, and that gives you license to go anywhere. The vampire world had the sunshine taken away from it, so we thought that the vamps would replace that big window source. They'd probably replace that with a big light.
We decided quite early in the piece to use a lot of lighting built into the sets, strips of fluorescent light.
So we designed big panels where a window would have been, or strips of light more than fittings on walls. The vampire world is quite hedonistic. They smoke, they drink, they don't care. So we wanted to give them a world that was fairly devoid of colour. So we chose a cool monochromatic palette, and we're particular about the colour schemes that we built into the sets.
In the human world, it's much more warm in its tones. The colours are much more warm. In the winery, it's sandstone and it's wood. So that the human sort of sanctuary has got the warmth of humanity about it, if you like.
You know, I think every cameraman forms a relationship with a designer that's paramount to the outcome of the film.
George did lots and lots of designs for the picture, whether they were designs for sets or whether they were designs for specific kind of pieces of equipment that people used, or they were designs for the Vampire Army uniforms.
George is such an amazing artist. He's got a kind of classic, retro, future look about his work that's really interesting.
Michael and Peter had very strong ideas of what the film should look like. We spent a lot of time together looking at books, photographs, just suggestions of what the film could look like. Then spent time with concept artists, and we started putting some of these ideas together. We used computers to generate models of the sets, which is, you know, it's a wonderful tool now that we have, that you can build a 3D model of a set and texture it and color it, and it's all on the computer. You don't have to build anything. And the vampire world is cold and grey and black and white. So the costumes and the sets reflect this. And we made the sets quite modern, quite sort of hard-edged, minimalist sort of sets, relying on just blocks of greys and blacks in the colour.
The sets were massive. I'd never really worked in a studio before. You kind of walk in there, you know, the lobby to Bromley's office, which is so big. You kind of walk in, I was like, you know, I started getting really excited and pumped when they were just showing me around the sets. The detail, the amount of detail, just even in the way that they've, you know, the colours that they've chosen, the painting, the way they paint it to get a certain effect and aesthetic, that was really exciting.
We're lucky enough to inherit, you know, basic flat-edge items from other films, which have saved us a bit of money. The construction team, the scenic artists, and the decoration team here have been fantastic. We've achieved things here that I'm certain would cost us 25% more if we were shooting in Sydney or Melbourne. Well, the costumes were interesting because it's set in the future, but we didn't want anything to look sci-fi futuristic. We decided to try and achieve a sort of non-period film, if you like. So it's a mix of contemporary elements and retro elements. A lot of the vampire world has got a sort of 40s, 50s feel about it. And because everybody's dressed in greys and blacks, it has that kind of period feel. When Ethan saw what we're doing with background extras, you know, he got it immediately what we're trying to do, and so he was very enthusiastic about getting into that period feel in a way. Willem, the character, he plays Elvis, has a great love for 50s cars, so we wanted to get that element into his costume too. So he wears like a classic white t-shirt and jeans that could be the 50s, could be Marlon Brando in the 50s.